I bow to the divinity in all my reflections. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate your attention. So, as a 7 to 8 year long meditation teacher, and if you have the ability to see, I'm melanated. I'm a black man, right? At least on the surface. And in my research, a lot of which was self-taught through the guidance of particular yogis that I ended up being in contact with who initiated me on this path. But in my due diligence and doing my research and studying as much as I could and listening to as many yogis and gurus and meditation teachers as I could, I saw that there was a void. Weren't particularly a lot of people that look like me, and I'm from Newark, hence the name Brick City. You know, if you're from Newark or you ever been through there, we call that Brick City for a few reasons. It gets cold temperature-wise. It gets cold as far as how life can get, and it's a bunch of bricks, bunch of brick buildings and projects and things of that nature. The concrete jungle, if you will. So we call it Brick City. And my moniker, Brick City Buddha, is kind of that juxtaposition, that dichotomy of being able to maintain your peace even in an urban environment, even in an atmosphere that's riddled with drugs and noise and sex and distractions and fear and worry and anxiety. So as I began to do my research, it wasn't a lot of teachers, it wasn't a lot of gurus that function in the space of having to hold that dualism of being super tapped in spiritually and being hungry for connecting to source at the same time having to navigate a world like where I come from Newark, Brick City Buddha. You got yin and yang even in that approach. So this channel was created a year ago. I've had the intention to do this for a long time. And I know you probably hear that noise in the background. This is a very peaceful, quiet home. But I decided to do this first meditation, which isn't going to be a long one. I decided to do it in an environment, in an atmosphere, much like what you guys are going to be dealing with. It's not always going to be pristine conditions for meditation. Usually, there's going to be some level of data or information coming in via the senses that is going to project the idea into your mind. This is not conducive for meditation. Why is that sound happening? Why is the alarm mower going off? And he's trying to guide us in meditation. This doesn't work, right? Your mind is always going to find an excuse within that constant field, that constant sea of data, of sounds, sense, sensations, all the information coming in via the windows of the senses are going to always come up with an excuse for why you can't direct your attention inward. So I feel like these are actually perfect conditions to show you that even when trap music is blasting outside your home, like what used to happen to me many times, you can still use that and ride the waves of these pieces of information into yourself, beyond the mind. You can transcend the thoughts by using the thoughts, by using what's already available to you in your natural environment. Whether that's a concrete jungle or the rainforest itself, doesn't matter, right? So with that being said, this series of meditations I'll be doing, we're gonna start out in the home because I feel like that's where people have, the most propensity to be able to make the decision, I need some time to myself. Usually when we're in the outside world, we are dedicated to the intent of accommodating what we need to in the outside world. When we're home, to a certain degree, this is sanctuary for us. So before we venture into beautiful environments and parks and all these different things, I want to just start this first series with the home series, right? And using your natural environment, your particular sanctuary, whether you got a mansion or an apartment, right? To use that space as your ashram, right? A lot of people go away to, live in spaces that are already conducive and set up. We call them ashrams where there'll be gurus and yogis and food is provided for you. Most of us don't have the time or the money to do that, right? And my approach is also an approach where I've studied a lot of the different spiritual sciences and modalities and been able to crunch them into bite-sized pieces that are applicable off the mat. You can take this into the cubicle, into the job, that coworker that's been pissing you off all week. Your kid's been running roughshod over you all week, right? All the different things throughout the course of a life, throughout the course of a day. When you don't have the ability to set out a yoga mat and go into meditation, you can use these same techniques in your actual life. So the people I've been working with, the thousands of people that I've guided in meditation over the past 7 years, a lot of them say I've never went that deep into myself. And I think a lot of my approach helps people to be in a space where they realize I don't have to stop my mind to do this. And throughout this process, we're going to do a 10-minute brief meditation where you do not have to fight your mind. You do not have to resist the thoughts that are naturally going to come up over and over into your field of attention. We're going to take a subtle, effortless approach through the thought traffic to what's beneath the thought traffic. There's a natural silence that's the ground of everything we experience in life, the loudest concert you can ever be in. If you know how to guide your attention, you can still tap into the ground of stillness and silence that emanates through every word, every noise, every piece of music, every conversation, every thought. There's this ground of silence and stillness that we could tap into. So for our first session, I want to focus on the thing that would normally distract most people, because when in meditation, usually the eyes are going to be closed. So what does that leave open? The field of sound. We're going to use sound, noise by noise, step by step, and allow our attention to be guided inward via the things that would normally tell our mind, I can't do this right now. It's too much noise. All right? So with that being said, welcome to Brick City Buddha's meditation page. And I want you to keep two things in mind as we go forward. I'm going to keep it very real. I'm going to keep it very regular with y'all, hence Brick City Buddha. But I'm going to also give you some tips and tidbits to help your mind adjust to becoming established and going away from thought. The average human being is thinking 55 to 75 thoughts a minute. Right? This can translate to around 80,000 thoughts a day, and mind you, average, let alone you're an overthinker or you got OCD or all these other things that cause the mind to ramp up. A lot of us could be dealing with 500,000 thoughts a day. This is a lot of energy to have to navigate. Even if you didn't leave your home and you got to deal with 500,000 thoughts, this is exhausting. This is where the stress predominantly comes from. So when you understand there's nothing you can do to stop that train of thought, then it becomes a matter of stepping your approach down from the macro, which is that 500,000 for my overthinkers, to the micro. And our saving grace is the fact that we can only ever think or give our attention to one thought at a time, right? And when you talk about the word attention, it comes from the root phrase. Shout out to Rupert Spira, however you say his name. One of the yogis I follow, check him out, right? But he often talks about the etymology of the word attention, etymology meaning the origin of where words come from. The etymology of the word attention means to stretch towards. So if you perceive your attention almost like a spotlight or a fog light, right? And you got this ocean of data, sounds and scents and sensations and vibrations and thoughts, all this different traffic going on through your mind. Your saving grace is the fact that your attention doesn't have to deal with all of it. It can only actually ever only deal with one point. We call it bindu, B-I-N-D-H-U. Your attention, your spotlight of attention can only ever shine on one bindu, one point. Bindu means drop or point. Attention can only go to one point at a time, right? So this is our saving grace. And as limiting as that may seem, this actually gives us the ability to circumvent or even march right through this ocean of information that's going on around you and inside your mind all the time. So this process is not about even confronting the mind. Let it play. Let it continue to do what it does. we're going to start to focus on where we shine this spotlight of attention. And even as I've been talking for these past few minutes, your spotlight of attention has dual work. You're trying to listen and pay attention to what I'm saying, but there's also these ancillary conversations happening in your head where you got to do this at 7 o'clock. Did you pay the bill yesterday, right? All these other things are vying for your spotlight of attention. We are going to take control back and start to dictate to our attention where it goes, as opposed to giving it the autonomy to try to go everywhere, which is what causes the mental stress. All right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and go right in. This will be a very brief meditation, approximately 10 minutes. So if you have, or if you can, go grab a swig of water. If you need to pause this, do what you got to do. It's always important to cleanse the system because water is like a microchip. If you've never watched the Dr. Emoto crystal water experiment, right, I would advise you check that out also on YouTube. But water downloads information. It downloads your emotions. It downloads your thoughts and your belief systems. So when you start the process by cleansing your system with fresh, downloadable energy, it helps to put you in a state where you can be completely present in what's happening in the moment. So I always start my classes by encouraging us all to take a nice swig of preferably water. Whiskey would not do you good right now. Leave that for later, right? So let's go ahead and take a commemorative swig together. And as you drink and you set your water down, close your eyes. And allow the spotlight of your attention and your ability to feel. Let it ride the wave of new water. There's a new stream, a new river of water entering the ocean of water that already comprises your body. We're made up on average from somewhere between 70 to 80% water. Some say even more. Right now, there is a fresh stream entering the body of water that already comprises your body. Notice that. Notice the belch. Notice the burps. The energy moving around in the form of what we would try to hide from another person, right? We don't want to we don't want to have people hear us burp or belch. Right now, pay attention to all of that. Right now, you're just noticing the sensation of this new wave of water entering the system, already splitting up, making its way to various body parts, lubricating the joints, liquefying the cells. Just feel water traverse into your system. Nothing more, nothing less. And I want you to follow this new stream of water into the system until you can no longer demarcate the new wave of water you just drank from the water that was already here. And in this moment, there are a bunch of things that the mind desires. It wants to push your spotlight of attention to acquiring a bunch of things or rectifying or fixing. In this moment, the body was just granted what it needed in the form of a few sips of water. So before we go forward, I want you to lift the right corner of your mouth as well as the left corner of your mouth. And you'll notice you just snuck a smile onto your face. Before your mind can convince you there isn't a valid enough reason to be having a smile on your face, before your mind can convince you this is stupid, allow the lifted corners of your mouth, that smile, to just send waves of gratitude. Our reason for this smile is just the intimacy of what this water is providing to your body. We overlook these things throughout the course of a day. In this moment, pay complete attention to the gift this water just granted your body and is continuing to do. And allow the vibration of thankfulness and gratitude to echo from your smile on your face into every inch, ounce, atom, every bit of H2O that's flowing through your body. I want you to imagine all of it smiling with you. Noticing you, noticing and appreciating it or them. Just being grateful for the water you just drank as it continues to join the ocean of water that already comprised your body. A few more seconds, keeping your smile, staying in gratitude. And the thing about gratitude is it kind of puts up a boundary, a border, a barrier, keeping your attention from going to the next thing, to the next want. Gratitude is almost like home base when we used to play tag. You couldn't be tagged out if you were on home base. Let your gratitude for these last few seconds be your home base. Just being grateful for the water. Feeling waves of liquid, the blood, the water, the plasma crashing against each other inside your body. Try to tap into the actual feeling of that. And then you could drop your smile, but maintain your awareness and your gratitude as we shift the spotlight of our attention towards sound. And the reason I chose a moment like this, where there are lawnmowers, you may hear faintly in the background the sound of a lawnmower, that engine, those blades cutting. Normally a meditation teacher would not choose this moment. Part of my thought process was, let me just wait till it finishes. My spirit told me, no, use this. So I want you to notice not only the sounds you hear coming from this YouTube video, I want you to notice all the different sounds and what I call the orchestra of natural noise. Keeping the eyes closed, keeping your spine nice and straight if you're sitting. If you are laying down, which is okay, as long as you're laid completely straight. But whatever asana, whatever posture you have chosen, I want you to shine the spotlight of your attention on the orchestra of natural noise, the symphony of sound happening wherever you are, coupled with what you hear coming from my end. And don't do it for any particular reason. Just start to notice, observe, watch what you're hearing with the spotlight of your attention. And not from a place of judgment or examination. Just starting to itemize all the different instruments. Each different sound is a different instrument in the orchestra of noise, and the symphony of sound happening in your present. See if you can identify each instrument. You're not going to say them out loud, just in your mind's eye, just with the spotlight of your attention. When you hear a voice walking outside, speaking, that's an instrument. The sound of my voice, the words that I speak, also an instrument. And just take a few seconds to see if you can identify every single instrument, even those very subtle ones. The quiet sounds, maybe the hum, the subtle hum of the machinery in whatever room you're in. Usually refrigerators have a subtle hum. Air conditioners, vents. You may hear dogs barking on my end or where you are. Without judgment, without the belief that any of these sounds should not be present, because that's what will cause you to disrupt your meditation. The belief that any of these sounds are not allowed to be here. Everything is invited. Let every sound happen naturally. And as you do so, you will remove some of the angst that would normally accompany these sounds during an intentional moment to go into peace, like meditation. When you remove that angst, you may start to notice that each sound only exists for fractions of a second. Each sound rises, presents itself as the present instrument, and without fail, without you having to resist it or usher it out of your moment, it fades. It dies. It disintegrates back into that ground of silence. Just notice this process of sounds rising and fading, one by one, over and over. Notice the difference in the sounds that may be a little bit more predominant, pronounced, and elongated. Some sounds are going to exist for a fraction of a second. Some sounds for a few moments. Some sounds happen for hours at a time. None of these sounds will exist with you forever. So as you're observing sound, notice the flimsiness, the temporary nature of sound. And by doing so, you give your spotlight of attention the autonomy to not get so caught up in the stories that are attached to these sounds. If you hear a vibration zooming past your house, the story and the label will project a car just drove by. Once that projects, you may create a vision for what type of car that was, or what color it was, or where it's going, or who's in it, and before you know it, you've lost connection with the process. So try not to do that. Just noticing each sound, each vibration beneath these sounds, rising and fading, without creating stories, without erecting labels and symbols for these sounds. Right now, there are thoughts continuing to cycle in and out of your field of attention. And this is an analogy I often give my students. Take the approach that your mind is like a baggage claim conveyor belt. And around that conveyor belt is thought after thought, mental suitcase after mental suitcase. It's okay to notice these suitcases as they go by. Just choose not to pick up any of these suitcases from the conveyor belt of your mind. They are not your responsibility right now, no matter how important they may present themselves. All we're doing is allowing them to come and go and watching sound rise and fade. That's it. Your only task. Now, I want you to shine a spotlight of your attention to whatever the furthest sound away from your body currently is. For me, that would be the sound of the lawnmower. For you, in your environment, it could be the sound of a plane flying over, or music in the distance. Whatever it is, I want you to investigate. Allow your spotlight of attention to shine past all other layers of sound. Go to the furthest and plant your attention at that layer of noise. And you may notice whatever the furthest sound is will shift moment to moment, second to second. Notice the shifts as one sound takes that spot and then fades, and a new further sound takes its place. Notice this. And again, don't pick up any of these mental suitcases, especially the belief that any of these sounds are annoying or shouldn't be here or are blocking your peace. These concepts are mental suitcases on that conveyor belt. You may notice them flash, just don't pick it up, and it won't harden into a belief system. and it will allow the space for what you may have considered an annoying sound to not be annoying, to just be a blip, a burst of sound and vibration that comes and fades. Now direct the spotlight of your attention back towards whatever the closest sound to your body is, without judgment, without examination, just noticing whatever the closest sound to you is. And usually, if you pay effective enough attention, usually the closest sound to us will be the sound of our own breath. So, in coming to a close in this meditation, listening to the sound of your own breath, allow your attention to spill into every nuance of breath. Don't manipulate the breath in any way. Don't try to elongate your inhales or exhales. Don't try to breathe fancy or meditatively. Don't worry about any of that. Right now, we're just allowing the spotlight of our attention to notice the natural ebb, flow, and process of breath. Hearing the sound. There is a mantra known as soul hum. If you really pay attention to what the breath sounds like, the inhalation sounds like so, an elongated so. The exhale sounds like hum, an elongated hum. So every inhale kind of sounds like so. Every exhale sounds like hum. Notice this. Notice the sensations and how inhalation crawls into the nasal passages. As it tickles the inside of the nostrils, and those hairs are gently pushed by the breeze of your inhalations. Notice the inhaling breaths as they glide into and up towards the top of the nasal passages. And those inhalations dive off the diving board into the actual body from the top of your nasal passages. Notice the body expand with each inhalation, the throat, the chest, the diaphragm, the belly, all without your help, naturally, effortlessly expand and spread to receive the energy of new breath. This isn't something you're even doing. It's kind of just happening on its own, and your attention is just observing it. And as you give keen, sharp focus and attention to the breath, the sounds in that symphony start to fade more into the background, into the distance. Noticing the exhalations, the body constricts and contracts, squeezes inward to push out the exhaling breaths. And the exhales find their way back up to that top of the nasal passages. And those exhales dive down the diving board, out now, through the nostrils, back into your atmosphere. Notice this. Notice the cool sensation, the cool temperature of the inhalations as opposed to the warmer temperature of our breath when we exhale. Almost like those cool inhalations come in and they gather the 98.6 temperature of the body, and as they glide out, they're wrapped in the warmth of our inner temperature. Notice this. Don't create a story for it. Don't break it down. Don't get scientific about it. Just notice it. Notice every nuance, detail, shift, movement, quality of your natural breath without manipulation. And as your attention gets comfortable with being established and just watching the breath, you may start to notice that you aren't even particularly guiding this process of breath. You aren't even breathing. Breath is happening to you, almost for you, as if breath is its own independent entity, almost separate from you. Just so happens to be happening inside of the body. But this breath is not yours. It's not your responsibility. It doesn't need your help or assistance. It's kind of doing its own thing. For these last few moments, just allow your attention to, instead of stretching towards what's happening in your outside world, allow your attention to relax, to cease stretching, to fold itself into and lay down upon the waves of inhalations and exhalations. It's like when our bodies are able to float on the surface of a body of water. Allow your attention to relax, and up and down. It's kind of on the waterbed of breath. Not picking up any suitcase, any luggage from the conveyor belt of your mind. Still able to notice the thoughts, but being more comfortable and not running towards what these thoughts are asking of you. Let thought happen in the distance. Last moment. Allow yourself to remain. Allow your attention to remain effortless, relaxed. Allow your attention to rest on the bed, the water bed of breath, up and down. Allow yourself to let go of everything that is not breath. Allow yourself to even let go of the idea of a breather. Doc's Brick City Buddha is not breathing. Breath is happening. Don't own breath. Just watch it happen in this vacuum of observership without identifying yourself as the owner of breath. Last few seconds, stay with the breath. And in a few seconds, as you continue to just allow your attention to relax and lay on the waterbed of breath, in a moment, in a few seconds, you will hear sounds and vibrations of singing bowls. Allow the sounds and the vibrations to dance through, to momentarily, secondarily accompany this watching, this laying on the waterbed of breath. Stay as you are. Observe the sound and vibration rise, and currently it's your present sound. And continue to observe as this present sound and vibration fades, retracts, folds itself back, almost as if it's going backwards, taking off the clothing of its form, which we know as sound and vibration. And before you know it, that sound that was just present has folded back into the ground of silence. And it's gone. Just as all of these sounds and thoughts are also doing, rising, presenting, fading. And when I count us down from 3, we'll take one big breath together. I want you to breathe this breath from the feet through the body towards the top of the head. No matter what is happening in your symphony of sound, eyes closed, it's all allowed, it's all invited, but none of it is attached to. In 3, 2, 1, begin to breathe through the nostrils, smooth, slow, and full. Pull that breath from the feet through the body to the top of the head. And hold that breath. Hold your attention in the sensation of the held breath. And in 3, 2, 1, whisper that breath through the center of your lips, making sure to collapse the lungs completely, get all the oxygen out of the lungs. And slowly begin to open your eyes, coming back to the realm of vision and sight. And even as our German Shepherd is going off in the background, again, it's very seldom where we'll have complete silence in our external realm. So getting to the point where these things no longer bother you, where you're not mentally attaching and picking up the suitcase of the sound or the sensation. This is what's creating the groundwork, the foundation for us to be able to go deeper into ourselves. I have a child, I have a son. I know I probably got a lot of parents watching this to a certain degree. When your kids are in the other room playing and you know they're safe, you may be in the kitchen having a conversation with a friend, their loudness becomes background noise after a while. And it's happening, but it's as if you don't even hear it. This is the approach we take into our meditation practice. This is what opens us up to remain detached from whatever is rising, presenting, and fading from our moment. Okay? So hopefully this has been helpful. Each meditation we will get into a different aspect of directing our attention, and eventually we'll get to the point where we'll even be able to detach from attention itself. But let's just start with where we are. Take this practice into the course of your day and see if you can remain detached as much as possible from creating labels and symbols for sounds. Work with the realm of sound until we meet again, and I will be doing my best to put one of these up each week. Share this with your friends. Let them know we have a melanated teacher, but beyond even that, someone who knows there's a large demographic in this world that don't have people that they can connect to and feel related to, that are just being regular, that are still able to guide them into the depths of themselves. Spread the word, y'all. Thank you for visiting Brick City Buddha. Love and light.